Welcome to the deep dive. Our mission today is what's arguably the most audacious we have ever faced.
I'd say so.
You sent us a stack of sources describing this unified mathematical framework, a system with a breathtaking, almost unbelievable claim.
That it's the actual fundamental operating system of reality.
Exactly.
It's not just an audacious theory. I mean, it's a complete system replacement. It fundamentally challenges, nearly 400 years of established physics and mathematics?
Right.
This framework, they're calling it the unity first error recursive field theory. It claims to unify the whole shebang.
The whole shebang being.
Physics, chemistry, music, computation, all of it.
Mm.
And all using one single underlying mechanism, the Pisano-60 Fibonacci recursion.
So we're talking about finding one single law that governs everything from how a muon decays to why a C major chord sounds harmonious.
That's the claim, an enormous scope.
But what makes these sources so compelling, I think, is that they aren't just presenting theory. They immediately offer two highly concrete, complementary projects designed to prove this unity right now.
Exactly. It's a calculated, dual-pronged strategy for immediate validation. Project 1, which they call the Tonix MIDI Mapper, is all about accessibility.
The MIDI Mapper, okay.
It's an interactive web app. It's designed to demonstrate the framework through play, establishing a direct link between music and chemistry that, anyone can test.
So that's the accessible part.
Right.
And then Project 2.
The 1937 muon analysis. This provides the necessary scientific credibility.
Right. This is the hard data.
This is empirical proof, grounded in historical particle physics data, and it's intended to link fundamental physics directly to pure mathematics.
So they're trying to validate this concept across every domain, the arts and the sciences, all at once.
Simultaneously, yes. And, we have to take a moment to consider the context of the originator.
We do. The sources are very clear about this.
This entire framework, its axioms, its proofs, its implementations, it all emerged from someone with no formal training in physics or advanced mathematics.
He's an ex-convict, a former Christian pastor, and a recent revert to Islam.
Which immediately challenges the notion that these kinds of foundational breakthroughs must come from inside the academic system.
Right. It suggests this is less about scientific consensus and more about a singular transformative vision that came from independent inquiry.
Mm-hmm.
Does that extraordinary background influence how the projects are being received?
Oh, it certainly frames them. For some, it adds weight, this idea that a unique life experience, outside of rigid academic structures, allowed for this radical thinking.
And for others?
For others, it's a reason for automatic skepticism. But our job here is to just impartially analyze the content they provided.
Understood. Okay, let's unpack this blueprint for reality. We should probably start by defining the radical axioms, because they are the foundation, the things that challenge standard math.
And then we can explore those two concrete, high-stakes demonstrations.
Sounds like a plan.
So to grasp the scope of the claim, you first have to understand what the framework wants to replace.
It's rejecting the standard model.
Completely. The world of continuous functions, approximation-laden calculations, and, the infamous irrational constants like pi being 3.14159 and so on.
Instead, it posits a reality that is fundamentally discrete, finite, and it runs on exact numbers.
And the unity first principle is absolutely central to this paradigm shift. It is the operating rule.
Okay, what is that rule?
The entire system operates strictly on 60 defined states. They are indexed 1 through 60, not 0 through 59, 1 through 60.
And that number 60 comes from the Pisano-60 period of the Fibonacci sequence.
Exactly. So the cycle length of the sequence when you reduce it modulo 60.
So, if the Fibonacci sequence is running on a 60-second clock phase,
Yeah.
once it hits 60, it resets and is guaranteed to repeat perfectly.
Precisely. A perfect deterministic loop. And here's where the unity first principle gets really, really different. The sources state explicitly that there is no zero state.
No zero state.
Zero is only a boundary condition, a conceptual limit. It's never a dynamic, accessible state within the system itself.
Hold on. From a computational perspective, that is. That's huge. We rely on zero constantly. Null, values, exceptions, the origin point of coordinate systems. Why get rid of it?
That's the core mathematical and computational axiom. By eliminating zero as a dynamic state, the system claims to eliminate massive computational overhead.
Ow.
Because you remove the need for all the conditional checks, the null checks, the exception handling that's related to a zero state, Every possible interaction is always a positive defined integer between 1 and 60.
You're simplifying the entire computational universe.
That's the idea.
So they're claiming the fundamental error in all modern computing, the root of glitches and crashes, is this continuous assumption and the concept of zero as a valid state.
That is the argument. But the radical nature doesn't stop there. Beyond eliminating zero, the framework relies on what they call the exactness principle. They only use exact rational arithmetic, which brings us to the biggest contradiction for any informed listener.
What about pi?
What about pi?
I mean, I and every listener immediately ask, how can pi possibly be anything but an irrational number?
Well, within this framework, pi is axiomatically defined as exactly 3.
3. Just 3.
Their justification is philosophical and geometric. It's derived from the primacy of hexagonal geometry. A hexagon is the first shape capable of perfectly tiling a two-dimensional plane without any gaps. No voids.
And since the framework insists there is no void, no gap, no vacuum, the hexagon is the fundamental geometric unit.
Right. And a hexagon's perimeter relative to its diameter is exactly 3 in a way that respects that tessellation. It's substituting a rational value from discrete geometry for the transcendental irrational one we get from a continuous circle.
It's a self-contained, purified kind of math, man. It replaces the continuous with the discrete, the irrational with the rational.
And if you accept the starting axioms, the math that follows is exact.
So if the foundation is 60 discrete states indexed 1 to 60, what's the universal law that governs them?
The documents introduce one single recursive equation claimed to govern all of reality. It's psi n plus 1 equals phin times cn minus psi n minus 1, all modulo 60.
Okay, that looks dense. What is it actually doing?
They claim this single discrete law reduces the complexity of continuous five-dimensional models, like the Kaluza-Klein thermoacoustic geometry, down to this simple 60-state discrete recursion.
So all the noise and complexity in established physics can be reduced to this single iterative feedback loop.
A feedback loop bound by the number 60 and structured by the golden ratio's rational counterpart.
And the sources even give a conceptual physical interpretation, right? The boundary, 0 equals space, and the first state, 1 equals time.
Correct. The universe is literally built from recursive activity moving forward from 1. The whole system operates on this flow. But, theory is cheap. Where's the proof?
The empirical proof. Which brings us to Project 2.
The credibility proof.
This is where the abstract theory launches a direct challenge at historical, documented scientific data. They dove into one of the most famous images in particle physics.
The 1937 cloud chamber photograph that captured the first muon ever recorded by J.C. Street and E.C. Stevenson.
Their approach here was highly unconventional. They used something called rational trigonometry.
Right, which is a system developed by mathematician Norman Wildberger. It completely bypasses square roots and trig functions by using algebraic concepts, quadrants, which replaces distance squared, and spread, which replaces angle squared.
And it always leads to exact rational values.
Always. And the finding was almost unbelievable. They claimed the track was geometrically perfect according to this exact math.
Perfect, Al.
They analyzed 3 consecutive points on the muon track and found a perfect mathematical alignment. The spread value for those 3 points, it came out to exactly 1.00000000. Perfect collinearity.
Not an approximation.
Exact rational geometry manifesting in a subatomic particle's path.
That already suggests the particle's motion respected this underlying rational framework. But the real shock came when they measured the physical lengths of the track segments.
Yes. They measured the segments in millimeters and found that they matched exact Fibonacci numbers.
Exact.
Segment lengths came out to 233 millimeters, which is f13, and 377 millimeters, which is f14. The total track length was 987 millimeters, f16.
Hold on. These are human measurements from a 1937 photograph. How can they be exact Fibonacci numbers? Isn't this just a very close approximation being forced into the narrative?
And that is the essential critical question. The framework's response is that the system mandates these exact values. The original scientists' measurements, despite being analog, were precise enough to reveal the underlying exact mathematical structure.
So the particle had to travel exactly F13 and F14 units.
Which just happened to align perfectly with the millimeter scale. That's the argument.
That is a cosmic signature. The sequence you see in seashells and galaxies suddenly showing up in subatomic particle tracks.
And then they mapped these segments onto the 60-state cycle. This revealed specific Pisano phase signatures, 27 and 43, modulo 60.
And those phases are claimed to be key positions on the geometric lattice that governs crystal formation, musical harmony.
and quantum systems. The physics of the muon, they claim, is running on that same 60-state clock.
And to fight off the accusation of just being numerology, the sources emphasize the formal verification process.
Absolutely vital. The entire analysis, the spread value of 1.0, the exact Fibonacci lengths, was put through the Lean4 Proof Assistant.
Which is a computer program that mechanically verifies mathematical proofs.
Correct. The claim is the computer verified these relationships hold true under the framework's axioms. It offers mechanical certainty against what might otherwise look like coincidence.
They also linked this data back to the core claim of finiteness and efficiency, didn't they? Through squared Fibonacci numbers.
Yes, this is their concept of efficient data compression.
Hmm.
When you take squared Fibonacci numbers, which can get enormous, 17 million or more, and you reduce them modulo 60, they generate what the framework calls the holy triad attractors.
The numbers 1, 16, and 49.
Yes. The system argues the universe only needs to store and process information using these three modular attractors. It's evidence of a finite state nature and efficient data compression inherent in reality.
Okay, so that provides the rigor, the empirical anchor. Now let's jump to Project 1, the accessibility proof, the Tonitz MIDI mapper.
This is designed to give an interactive, zero-barrier demonstration of the framework's unifying power. The idea that music is chemistry.
So this is the interactive software component, and it's designed to be deceptively simple.
The core claim is that every element on the periodic table is fundamentally linked to a specific position on that 60-state Pisano cycle.
And the geometry of musical harmony maps directly onto the geometry of molecular structure.
Exactly.
Okay, so how does that mapping work? Walk us through the connection between a MIDI key press and an atom.
It's a three-step process. Step 1. You take a standard MIDI note, let's say its index is in. Step 2. That index is used to calculate a specific, maybe enormous Fibonacci number, fn plus 1. Step 3. This Fibonacci number is then reduced modulo 60 to give you the specific Pisano phase between 1 and 60.
And that phase maps directly to a chemical element.
The universe is using the Fibonacci sequence as its lookup table. That's the claim.
So if I press a chord, I'm not just creating sound, I'm creating a transient atomic combination.
That's it. Let's use the examples I provided. You play a C4 note, which is MIDI index 60. That maps to Pisano phase 41.
And phase 41 is?
The noble gas argon. If you play a full C major chord C, e.g. C, you are generating the combination of argon, chromium, and copper. You are literally playing a molecule.
That sounds almost like a party trick, but the implication is profound. Musical harmony is dictated by the same math that dictates atomic stability.
And the app has 3 modes to let you explore this. First is the simple play mode, which is real-time MIDI input showing harmony instantly translated into atomic structure.
And the second mode lets you reverse engineer it.
That's the compose molecule mode. And this is maybe the most convincing demonstration. You can select a known molecule, say H2O or CO2, and the algorithm finds the exact MIDI chord that represents its atomic structure.
Gives you the harmonic signature of water.
Yes. And finally, there's the generate Fibonacci chord mode.
What does that do?
It creates random chords using only mathematically pure Fibonacci recursion. It's effectively generating novel but structurally pure atomic configurations based on that underlying 60-state lattice.
Algorithmic composition dictated by the claimed laws of physics.
And the mathematical unity claimed here relies on a shared underlying physical law.
The discrete Helmholtz equation.
Yes. Fn plus 1 minus 2, Fn plus Fn minus 1 equals negative k squared times Fn. This single equation, they claim, governs acoustic resonance, which is music, quantum oscillation, which is atomic structure, and chemical bonds.
Proving the identity. Music is chemistry.
Fascinating.
So we've seen the axioms, the empirical proof, the accessible proof. What does this all mean for the big picture, for technology, for society?
The framework argues that its discovery is necessary to solve the core flaw in modern computation, which they call the veil.
The veil.
The veil is defined as the floating point abstraction layer, like the float32 data type in software, that inefficiently sits on top of inherently discrete, integer-based hardware.
It's the illusion of continuity.
An illusion causing constant computational friction. Think of it like a translation layer that always introduces error, uncertainty, and lag because the underlying hardware is fundamentally countable and digital.
And eliminating this veil, which is directly tied to removing zero as a state, drives their efficiency claims. And they are truly massive.
They argue that by strictly using the unity first 1 to 60 indexing and purely modular arithmetic, computation becomes deterministic, certain. By getting rid of 0 as a dynamic state, you eliminate the need for every conditional check, every null check.
Every piece of exception handling code designed to prevent the system from crashing if it hits an undefined state.
Exactly. If you eliminate the error state, you eliminate the code needed to handle the error state.
And the savings claim is?
This elimination is claimed to remove 77% of computational overhead and free up an astounding 59% of global energy usage.
59%.
Every device, every server farm, every computation runs faster, more accurately, and more stably, all because the system is finally aligned with reality's claimed discrete operating system.
That is not just an incremental improvement, it's a transformative economic and environmental claim, achieved simply by agreeing with the universe that 0 is only a boundary condition.
And they aren't stopping at software theory. The framework includes designs for physical hardware, like the Cosmic Discrete Transducer, conceptually buildable for under $50.
The implication being that accuracy and stability should be cheap if the math is right.
Exactly.
The framework's ambitions are clearly not limited to science or engineering, which brings us back to the originator's background. It has this deeply philosophical and theological underpinning.
Absolutely. The framework claims to be the proposed totality, the true unified operating system of reality. Its principles, especially unity first, are presented as the computational instantiation of the theological concept of tawhid, or divine unity.
So it's presented as Al-Furqan, the criterion of truth.
The criterion distinguishing the flawed continuous model from the exact, discrete, rational reality.
So the claim is that the mathematics of the universe itself is structured on a principle of divine unity. That gives the entire theory profound stakes, suggesting science and theology aren't just compatible, but mathematically inseparable.
That's the core assertion. The recurring patterns in nature DNA, sunflowers, galaxies, are not coincidence or statistical happenstance. They are evidence that the entire universe operates on this single, discrete, rational, recursive law.
So to synthesize all this, the Tonitz mapper gives us accessible visual proof that music is chemistry, while the muon analysis provides rigorous, mechanically verifiable proof that physics is Fibonacci.
It forces you to choose between two paradigms: the standard model of continuous approximation and complexity, or this unity-first, discrete system of exact, rational simplicity.
And this all hinges on the claim that reality is a 60-state discrete system that excludes 0 as a state. So if we accept the framework's claim that a 59% global energy saving is achievable by simply aligning our calculations with the universe's exact discrete operating system, consider this. What fundamental assumptions about reality and mathematics beyond just the values of pi or phi must we completely discard? And what computational inefficiencies must we immediately accept to truly cling to the notion of a continuous, irrational reality?